In this video, I will cover different forms of ovarian tumors. Cystadenoma is the most common benign tumor of the ovaries that usually present as unilateral cysts. And it could present as either serous or mucinous. Cystadenocarcinoma, on the other hand, gives rise to the majority of the malignant tumors of the ovary. And these tumors usually present as multioculated cysts with either serous or mucinous lining. So serous or mucinous lining. The serous lining presents with psammoma bodies, which are round collection of calcium, while the mucinous form presents with pseudomyxoma peritonei, where there are mucinous or gelatinous ascites that are building up in the abdomen. So here is an example of the serous and mucinous cystadenocarcinoma. So in the serous form, you can see that there are psammoma bodies, which are round calcifications. While on the mucinous form, you can see that there are these mucins or gelatinous ascites that are present in these patients. The next form of ovarian epithelial tumors are Brenner tumor, and this B goes for the mnemonic that you can use for being benign, bladder-like epithelial cells, and finally coffee bean nuclei. So you can use the mnemonic B to go for benign, bladder-like, which means that these cells have transitional type epithelial cells which can either contract or expand, and as well as the coffee bean nuclei, and this is due to the presence of the nuclear grooves. In addition, these tumors have a pale yellow color. So here is an example of the Brenner tumor, so that you can see that there is a pale yellow color to the tumor, and then you can see here we have the coffee bean nuclei with a central groove. So here would be another example, coffee bean, another coffee bean right here, and then another coffee bean right here or here. The next type of cells are germ cell tumors. So in teratoma, there are three germ cell layers, which includes the endoderm, mesoderm, and the ectoderm. And thus, when you dissect these masses, you usually find hair and teeth inside. So here is an example of a teratoma, where you can see that we have the mesoderm layer that has the cartilage right here. We have the GI glands, which are coming from the endoderm, and finally we have the epidermis, which is coming from the ectoderm. And then there is a specialized form of teratoma that contains functional thyroid tissue, and these form of tumors are referred to as stroma ovary. And because of the increased production of the thyroid hormones, there would be increased T3 and T4, which would provide a negative feedback, and thus it would decrease the production of TSH. The next type of tumor is the Dysgerminoma, which is a malignant tumor that is very similar to male seminoma. So you wouldn't be able to differentiate Dysgerminoma from seminoma on a histology. And then this type of tumor is usually associated with Turner syndrome. And there is an increased production of the human chorionic gonadotropin as well as increased lactate dehydrogenase in these patients. The next type of tumor is the yolk sac tumor, which shows Schiller-Duval bodies on the histology and present with the elevated alpha-fetoprotein. So here is an example of the Schiller-Duval bodies, which resembles a primitive glomeruli. The next form of ovarian tumor is the Choriocarcinoma, and in these tumors there is increased production of the human chorionic gonadotropin by the syncytiotrophoblasts, which will lead to increased frequency of the theca lutein cysts with no villi. So generally, it's the human chorionic gonadotropin that leads to the formation of the theca lutein cyst, and in these tumors, since there is increased production of HCG, therefore there would be increased frequency of the formation of the theca lutein cyst. The next form of ovarian tumor is the fibroma, which usually presents with a spindle-shaped fibroblast that cause pulling sensation on the groin. So pulling sensation on the groins. And then there is a syndrome called Mage syndrome, which is associated with the formation of the fibroma, ascites, and pleural effusions. The next form of ovarian tumor is the granulosa cells, which leads to the excess production of the estrogen. And thus these patients usually present with precocious puberty in females, which leads to the irregular menses as well as dysfunctional uterine bleeding. Now, one characteristic of these tumors is the formation of the Kahl-Exner bodies, which are fluid-filled spaces that are in between the granulosa cells. So here is an example of the Kahl-Exner bodies that are shown right here with the black circles. The next form of ovarian tumors are the Sertoli-Leydig cells, which increase the production of the androgen. And thus it will cause the precocious puberty in males, while it also causes virilization, hirsutism, and gynecomastia. And histological findings of these tumors are characterized by the presence of the Rinke crystals. And so here is the example of the Rinke crystals that is associated with the Sertoli-Leydig cells. And that concludes our discussion.